there's a certain kind of artist that I think that people, in fact, you know what, I'm going to say one, G-Eazy.
Okay.
G-Eazy, for me personally, he's like, oh, what's the word? He's like, he's an accessible artist that if you didn't really have a strength of concept or you didn't really have a strong idea of music, you might think he's a cool artist. But if you really care about music, you'd be like, why is this the big thing? So, and even like, you know, Logic, I understand why Logic's big, but it's like basically there's certain people that it's very easy to be like, oh, this is big, he's got loads of followers, I fuck with it. If you're a bit of a sheep, it's very easy to follow us into certain artists' careers.
I think analytics play a long part. So I think when you look at the data and big data within music, it is so influential.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that Ryan Leslie? That's the one. Ryan Leslie. He's big on analytics and big around data intelligence. And ultimately, you can almost formalize someone to be a hit, and you can formalize someone to be big. And that's why there's so much emphasis on streaming numbers and how much record sales and follower accounts, like. And I think sometimes that can distort the credibility and the authenticity that you refer to when it comes to music. Because there's sometimes you will listen to a track which is a banger, but it hasn't really got the
magic to it.
The magic to it, or hasn't got the machine behind it, or hasn't got the numbers behind it. And sometimes the same way we see £1 million and our eyes light up, if we see 1 million views, that makes our eyes light up to go view it.
I think I'm the wrong person to speak on that as well, because for me, if I see loads of numbers, I'm like, no, I'm not into it. So Slow Tie, the video Jiggle, Slow Tie is sick. He's not a grime rapper, but his music recently has almost got like the grime energy to it. He's like a UK rapper from Northampton. But the first track I heard from him, it's the song called Jiggle. And my friend came over and he knew the video director or something. He was like, oh, this video is so... He's a video director himself. He was like, this video is so sick, you got to watch it. So we're watching the video for Slow Tie Jiggle. My best friend is there, and this guy is like, oh yeah, like he's sick. He's like, he's not got many views. Like the video had like 1,000 views or something, because it just dropped. And he's like, yeah, he's so sick. And like, I go straight away, I'm like, no, he is sick. Go onto socials. If I find a rapper that I'm like into that I think is really good and he has no followers, I'm like, great, I'll interview him. Because that's how I started, really. I found like a rapper that had 1,000 followers. I was like, can I interview you? He blew up. I get the interview that got quoted by everyone. Yeah. And like, and then the guy blew up, and I had like kind of that in where suddenly I was like, cool, I can do this. So he was like, yeah, he's sick. He's only got like a couple hundred or 1,000 views in this video. So while we're chatting, I go onto Twitter, I find his Twitter page. I was like, oh my God, he's only got 300 followers. And my best friend Lauren goes, oh my God, this is like porn for Lily. Like, because literally she started laughing, because she was like, if he's got under 500 followers, I'm like, yes, I found a guy no one knows. Like, because for me, I'm like, I like being ahead of, I like the underdog, and I like fucking with someone that no one else knows about.
You like being ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Basically.
And not just to be like thirsty, like, oh, I found him first, but just because I like listening to someone that doesn't have big numbers, that not everyone knows about, to like kind of be part of their journey.
Their come up.
Exactly. And like Slow Tie now, Slow Tie is kind of blowing. Like his manager is part of Boiler Room. He's working with Quez Darko, who's Julie Adnuga's boyfriend. Like, so Slow Tie is going to blow easily. And this is like 2 years ago that I started following him.
How do you like build these relationships? Because it looks like with a lot of the artists that you've interviewed, of course you met them during their infancy. But what are like the networking lessons you've learned? Like, how do you approach these artists? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel like a lot of artists are unapproachable, or they have an ego, or they're entitled. How do you kind of overcome those misconceptions or perceptions?
I think be genuine. Like, one thing I've never done is like being like, follow me back, like, you know, or like, let's connect, let's build. Like, I'm never that person. And like, even like you said, I built with them in their infancy, so they're not like thinking that I just jumped on the wave then. Like, there's a lot of people that like, even recently, like someone like Party Next Door, like he started following me recently on Twitter, and it's like only because I've probably been playing his songs for like 2 years. And on my radio show, when I play a song, I at the person. So if you see me tweet your song for 2 years straight, and you know, eventually you're like, oh, actually, this girl's actually supporting me, and she's never once reached out like, oh, come and do an interview with me. She's never like begging friends. You kind of think, you know, actually that person supports. And there's a lot of people like that, like Party Next Door. I've never once spoken to him. We've never tweeted each other. No like actual conversation. But I know that he obviously appreciates the support because he's followed me. And he follows not that many people. So that kind of strength of, you know, basically you being consistent with the support and also not being thirsty with it or trying to get something back out of it, that's what's built my profile in terms of like the artist support. And that's why, like, again, like it sounds really braggy, but like someone once said at a press thing, they were like, Lily doesn't have that many followers, but she has a high, what would you say?
high engagement rate?
Well, the followers are much more significant.
Okay.
So you could have 1 million followers, whereas I have like 12K.
Yeah.
But that 12K includes very high profile people.
Yeah.
Basically, I've got like significant followers rather than having a lot of followers.
It's a rule of multiplication. So like, if you've got only 100 followers and 100 of those have 1 million followers,
exactly,
and they follow you, you've got a multiplication of that million as well.
Exactly it.
So there is a higher engagement rate, which helps.
Yeah.
Which means that when it comes to influencers, brands, and so forth and such forth, you've got a wider reach, because it's not just about how many followers you have, which is a direct access to people because they're directly influenced by you, but someone liking your photo or someone engaging with you, a lot more other people are seeing that, which is like the secondary ripple almost.
Yeah.
I think like even with like the relationships I build, of course they may not be of as clout as the ones that you may have access to,
but they will be in their way,
in their own time. But I think even the relationship I built was on the same premise of just genuinity, authenticity, and support. And I think regardless of the spectrum of people, even I've had on the podcast, be it starting up or even now that they've got much prominence, like Mo the Comedian, it's always been on that emphasis of genuinity. And it's like, I'm not going to be the type of person being like, oh yeah, I know this person, or like, oh yeah, you know what I did. It's just more of a case of saying, yeah, like I really support this person, and it's what you do in silence to support that person rather than what you're ranting and raving about, which gives you the credence to how you're supporting someone.
It's so true.
And I think that's a lot of the time where a lot of people, when the biggest conversation I had with someone was about what support means. And a lot of people, like people always have that chip on their shoulder. It's like, oh, if you were never fucking with me when I was working hard, and now you want to fuck with me because I'm big.
You went with me when I was shooting the gym.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's like, well, I had to come to that acceptance to myself where I had that same chip on my shoulder when I was much younger. And now it's got to a point where it's like, I'm not entitled to anybody's support. And now it's got to a point where I've had to have that humility in myself in saying, cool, if you support me, bless. If you don't, that's no drama either. God bless you.
Yeah.
And I think for now, whoever will support you, there's much more authenticity to that. Like with the Forte stuff, with the merchandise we've sold, there's people that have never met me, people that just know me from an online profile, but they have a gravitas to me where they'll be like, I'm going to spend X amount of money to buy your hat.
Yeah.
And they've never met me. And I take much more emphasis on that. Or if someone can DM me and say, I listened to this episode and this is how it made me feel, positive or negative, that means much more to me than having 1,000 plays where I don't know what they're thinking.
It's so true.
And sometimes it's just like humbling yourself and just narrowing your world down a little bit and just focusing on how you qualify support.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to let go of that entitlement. And I think there's so much entitlement rife in a lot of things that people do, be it business, music, media, or otherwise, that people need to let go of. Let go of that ego and just say, look, I'm doing this for me. If you fuck with it, bless. If you don't, cool, there's something else that you can fuck with. This is an open marketplace. You know what I mean? That's how capitalism thrives. It's nice to hear that you build genuine relationships. And I think that's a gem in itself, to make sure that any network you build is based on a genuine relationship. And it's more about what you can give than what you can take.
That does, that means more in many ways than getting, a big paid job, knowing that the artist actually genuinely cares and knows who you are is actually what's kept me going for so long. Because I didn't get paid for a long time doing this job. So it's kind of like, that's the pay is that. And if you don't want to get that pay, you want money, then you shouldn't be in this career.
Speaking of money, not necessarily on the figures itself, but the fact that you had to go through a period where you weren't remunerated for your output, how did you handle that period in that era? What was your mindset? How did you persevere through that?
God.
Because I feel like a lot of people in a creative space, they want to be paid for what they do. And I think a lot of times they are undervalued.
Yeah, no, everyone's undervalued.
Undeniably,
yeah.
I will not deny that. But in some regards, there's an entitlement again in terms of how much you've been paid or how much you should be paid. And I think, how did you go through that transition of when should you do something for free? How did you overcome being shafted and everything in between?
Oh God, it was a big roller coaster. It was many ups and downs for years. I was at the end of the line where I was like, this isn't working. I've done this for 5 years. I'm not earning enough money. I was getting paid maybe I got paid 150 to do a cover story for a magazine, which is not enough to pay the rent every month, you know what I mean? Especially when you get paid 6 months later.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get paid for those stories for like 6 months. So like that struggle is like, oh, that's the worst pain. And like, I'm so glad I remember that shit. I'm so glad that I will never forget how bad that was.